What's up, everybody? It's old Papa G, and in today's Pokemon video, we're going to be going over the tier list for Crown Tundra, and I'm also going to be showing the old tier list and what changes are going to be made most likely based upon the new entries into the game. Now, just so you see the list in front of you right now, I just want to clarify, when you go into the online mode, you can't use legendaries. So I just wanted to specify that, but I just had this list. I figured it would be nice and clean to just include all the new entries. But what I'm mainly going to focus on are the Pokemon that aren't legendary and how they're going to affect the current meta. And I'm going to show you what the meta is right now and where these new Pokemon could be placed accordingly, okay? And that's about it for this video. So I just want to show you that I am reliable. I'm going to put my master rank, that way you understand that I am a reliable source. And the information that I also get based upon these tier lists are from GameNet, which is basically the #1 Pokemon tier list in the world. I've never seen another more accurate site, and the way that they do the EVs and explain the move sets and everything like that. But we're going to get into that shortly. So here we go. So first off, here's the master rank that I have. Like I mentioned, I have 276 wins. Another thing I want to say is that's actually not in singles. That's in doubles format. I prefer to do doubles. I feel like it just feels like the gameplay is more smooth and fluent, and that way people, when they use like double attacks, it actually can benefit them, and it brings a different dynamic. So I just wanted to show that that's in doubles and not singles because I prefer to do that. And now let's get into the tier list, guys. So for the S tier, the Pokemon that are not legendary, we have Salamence and Dragonite. Now, these two have been staples ever since they came out. Like, whenever they were released, so Ruby and Sapphire, ever since then, Salamence was relevant. Red, Blue, and, the originals, Dragonite, he has been good forever. So the format that you would use for them is they're both physical attackers, and they both rely on speed and a little bit of bulk. Dragonite might have two forms once the tier list comes out officially. He might have a defensive wall, but for this video purposes, we're going to go over the attack wall. Not wall, I'm sorry. We're going to go over the physical attack format. So the EVs that you would use for Dragonite and Salamence, both of them, is going to be 252 speed, 252 attack, and then +4 defense. And I'm going to show an example of what I'm talking about. If you're new to EV training and new to meta Pokemon, the easiest way for you to do this is to stack up your money, and then you go to the vendor that's by the Elite Four gym, or whatever you want to call it. I know it's not the Elite Four anymore, but you know what I'm saying. You go to the one outside of there, and you can buy these, basically they're potions or whatever, and they increase the attack stat, defense stat, and all that stuff. Just keep in mind, don't ever level your guy at all. Make sure the second you catch them, you go right to that vendor and you give them the correct stuff, because once you start leveling, you completely ruin the EV stat. So, in my opinion right now, the reason why Salamence and Dragonite are in the S tier, I think that's going to also move over into current meta. This is obviously only the Crown Tundra Pokemon. This is definitely going to be in real meta as well. If they're not going to be in S tier, they will definitely be in A tier. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the S tier. And then I'm going to show you an example of the EVs, and we're going to get right back into it. So here's an example with Dragapult specifically, because he's a physical attacker. I also didn't go over their preferred nature. That actually just, this picture actually just reminded me. They're definitely going to want to be Jolly Nature. So obviously it shows it right there. Jolly Nature increases the speed and lowers the special attack. Since they're going to be focusing on regular attack, that will be their option. A secondary option, which I don't recommend over Jolly. Jolly is definitely the best choice. So either breed it that way or use one of the mints that you can get from the Battle Tower. Is Adamant. Now, when you pick Adamant, obviously they'll have a little bit more attack, but their speed will be lower. So in those cases, obviously you're going to want to outspeed somebody so you could get multiple hits. But here we go with the moveset. Obviously, this is his moveset. But for specifically Dragonite, he's definitely going to have like a Thunder Punch, extreme speed, and stuff along those lines. And then this is what I was talking about with the EVs. You could see 252 speed, 252 attack, 4 defense. Now, make sure you fill don't start off with the defense, because when you give the potion, it actually gives 12 EVs. So you're already ruining all of it. You want to max out speed and attack first, and then finish it off with the defense, because it is an easy mistake to make, like just doing the defense one quick, thinking nothing of it, but you won't max out one of the stats otherwise. So that is something to be aware of. So now going back into this, we have our A tier. The only non-legendary in the A tier is Blaziken. Blaziken definitely will be in the A tier for physical attackers to begin with. He's obviously extremely quick. He has a good move set with his fire and physical attacks. There's not a lot of physical attack fire moves. Obviously, he has Blaze Kick and things along those lines, and he definitely will be a staple. Now, in the B tier, you can see that Garchomp is in there. Now we're getting a little bit more non-legendary Pokemon. The B tier is going to be interesting because you have Garchomp, Nidoking, and Crobat. Now, these three Pokemon were always staples in other games. Crobat specifically has a really, really high speed, probably one of the highest in the games. Even with all these Pokemon, he's probably a top 5 speed Pokemon. He's going to rely on agility, speed, and then using like Toxic and stuff like that. Obviously, Garchomp used to be a sweeper. When he was first released, he used to sweep teams, and he wouldn't think anything of it. Right now, he's in the B tier. I think it is possible he could be in the A tier for physical attackers. And yeah, that's basically it for them. Also, I would say for Garchomp and Crobat, they're definitely going to want to be Jolly Nature as well, increase the speed and lower the special attack. And the one thing with Nidoking has potential to be a wall. So one or two options, people might run an Adamant type of thing like Rhyperior. So obviously he's a little bit slower to begin with, so giving him Jolly Nature isn't necessarily going to put him over high-speed opponents anyway, so people might be picking Adamant Nature, which will increase attack and lower special attack. And he could also have a wall format, so, they'll pick a defensive nature. What I recommend is, so you can look at all the natures, you go on Bulbapedia and type in Pokemon natures, and that way you can look at all of them before you make your pick. As for the rest of this tier list, before I go into the current meta, it's either legendary or they're going to be irrelevant. Obviously, the D tier, those Pokemon, for the most part, I don't see them ever being utilized in current meta online. And also, same thing with the C tier. And also keep in mind that, again, no legendaries can be used in meta. So I just put them in there, but in general, they won't be honestly relevant because you can't use them. So now we're going to get into the tier list, and I'm going to show where Salamence, Dragonite, Blaziken, Garchomp, Nidoking, and Crobat could go. So here we go. So first off, I'm going to start off with the physical tier list from the current meta. And the reason why I'm going to start off with the physical tier list specifically is because that's where most of the relevant Crown Tundra Pokemon are going to end up. So as you can see in the S tier, it's Dragapult, Excadrill, Galarian, and Mimikyu. So for those Pokemon specifically, they have been in the S tier since this game has originally came out. Those were in the game to start. They also are really good in doubles. But for example, Excadrill is good solo, but he also benefits from people that use, Sandstorm and stuff like that. But, okay, let's get into the Crown Tundra, guys. So, as for Dragonite and Salamence, I think it's no question they're going to be A tier to S tier, probably teeter in between the two. Dragonite might end up being in the S tier, and then Salamence might end up being in the A tier. You will see these in meta. There is no doubt about it, so be prepared for them. Obviously, you're going to want to have something to combat the dragon. Obviously, another dragon-type move or ice, something to hit super effective against these Pokemon, which normally, for the most part, people always have something along those lines in their lineup in order to combat a dragon-type. Dragon-types haven't really been as big in this meta, but it seems like now with these new additions of all these dragons with Dragonite, Salamence, and Garchomp, you're going to see a big wave of it, and you're going to need something to combat that. So keep that in mind. Blaziken, I think he's going to definitely end up being in the A tier. I don't see him dropping to the B tier. He's never been a B tier type of guy. He will be in the meta. Obviously, like I said, there's not a lot of physical fire attacks, so he's kind of like unique. A lot of the fire attacks seem to be for special attacks, so that uniqueness will be in there. Now, as for Garchomp, I think Garchomp is going to end up being in the B tier. For some reason, his stats seem like they're not as high as they used to be. It's almost like a little bit of a nerf. But like I said, he is a dragon type. Even if he is B tier, that doesn't mean he won't be relevant. A lot of these B tier Pokemon you do see constantly while you play. I do think that he could even possibly be A tier depending on the team that he's surrounded by. As for Crobat, I don't necessarily know if he's even going to make the meta. I do think if he does make it, it will be special teams and special scenarios. He'll be in the B tier. And also, like I said, he's going to have really high speed. He's going to definitely run a toxic build, trying to poison and tick down the enemies. And lastly, as for Nidoking, like I said, you wouldn't pick Jolly. It would be like the similar thing as Rhyperior or Tyranitar. You're either going to pick a high defensive build like Rhyperior and then, stack defense and then along with stack attack for his EVs, or it would be like Tyranitar, you pick adamant nature and then again stack up defense and stack up attack. So just for an example, it would be 252 attack, 252 defense, and +4 special defense. You might want to swap between special defense and defense. He is pretty well rounded. He's not like just an all around one defense like Snorlax is really high on special defense. So a lot of people give 252 defense because that's on the little bit of the lower end, so that like evens it out. Same thing with Chansey. And now I'm just going to show the rest of the meta and just give a brief talk through for those. So I figured we'll just finish off with doing attack and then we'll get into defense. This is the special attack tier list. A thing to mention about this tier list in specific, there really hasn't been a lot of really high ranking special attack Pokemon as far as long as this game has been out. It's really just always been Rotom, Hydreigon, and Togekiss in the S tier. Obviously, range attacks are relevant because certain walls that come out, they're just heavy defense stacked, so they need to like combat that with something that hits strong on special attack where they're a little bit weakened. It doesn't seem like any new additions from Crown Tundra is going to change this, but obviously from Isles of Armor, the additions have been made with Alakazam, which is definitely a staple. He's a sweeper. He'll one-hit KO a lot of guys, so that was added in Isles of Armor, so that's something to consider. Obviously, you see Porygon Z, same thing. Magnezone, a really strong electric attack. He's definitely relevant, and it's good to take out the defense walls that are weak on the special defense. But like I mentioned, they haven't really, in Crown Tundra, they really didn't add any special attackers. They only added physical attackers, so there's nothing really to go into more on this end. So next we have our physical walls. It's kind of like the same exact thing, just how like there's more physical attackers that are relevant. There's more physical tanks that are relevant. Again, this meta, other than Nidoking might end up having a beef tank wall in here. He wouldn't be a special defense wall. He would be a defense wall. So this is pretty much the exact same thing between Isles of Armor and Crown Tundra. Nothing's really going to change. Obviously, in Isles of Armor, they added Tangrowth, which has been a pretty good staple with the poisons and stuff like that. The one thing I want to mention, I did mention earlier how Nidoking might have a similar purpose as Rhyperior. So as you can see, Rhyperior is in the A tier. He does have really strong attacks. Most of the time, they run an adamant build because he doesn't need a nature that focuses on defense because his defense is already so high. So for the most part with Rhyperior, there's two different builds. It would be defense and special defense stack with adamant, or it would be adamant nature again with 252 attack and then really beefing up his defense and making him an insane wall and attack combo. That's what I think you're going to see with Nidoking. He's definitely going to run Earthquake, and he might even run Horn Drill because a couple of different classes run Sheer Cold for like a get out of jail one-hit KO possibility. Like I said, the only one that would be implemented here would be Nidoking. So now we're going to show our last tier list for special tanks. So the same thing as in special attackers, there's just not as many special defense wall, but that makes sense because there's not as many special attackers in the game, so it's not as utilized. So nothing has really changed in terms of Crown Tundra ads. Obviously in Isles of Armor they added Chansey, which was a freaking great ad. I mean, Chansey, not only is her health insane, she also has things to, basically she's utility. She helps your team, obviously with Wishing Heal and things like that. She could keep the team up, Hard Boil, and just, she's really good at not only surviving but great utility. So that was the ad from Isles of Armor, but as I mentioned, they didn't really add anything that I see from Crown Tundra to be added into the special tank wall. Like I said, there's really not too many to begin with. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've been making a lot of Pokemon videos lately. Crown Tundra got me pumped up, and I really hope you guys enjoy the content that I'm putting out. If you do enjoy it, I would appreciate any like and subscribe to my channel. And thank you all for tuning in as usual.